as a reminder, everyone kind of saw we had a little bit of a technical glitch here. We're remote. For the school board members, please bring the microphones close to you. They pick up very close. I know some of us are sharing, so I appreciate that. But on that front, brief statement, and I'm going to defer a little bit to Dr. Miller here, but thanking A.W. Beatty for the evening that they showed us so far and allowing us to use their facility. Dr. Miller.
Yeah, so again, at 5:30, we had the opportunity to tour Beatty. Specifically, we looked at the surgical sciences program, which is one of the only ones around and one of the best that's around in the nation. Mr. Heasley's been the executive director here for many years. Beatty's enrollment overall is at some of the highest levels they've seen since the 80s, which is incredible. At Pine-Richland, we have students that come here either in the morning or in the afternoon, so they spend part of their day at Pine-Richland High School and then part of their day at Beatty. But incredible programs are available here. Beatty is respected as one of the top career technical education centers around. And so if someone has not looked at their website, just take a look at the programs available. When students finish here, many of them move on to 2- or 4-year colleges, but others are prepared to go directly into the work field or for additional technical training. So really an outstanding program here at Beatty. And also thanks to the culinary students who helped with dinner.
Thank you, and thank you, Sean and Mr. Karpinski, for figuring out the little technical glitch there. We'll move to item 1.02, student and staff recognition. Ms. Hassinger.
18 Pine-Richland High School students participated in the Slippery Rock World Languages Competition on October 10th, along with hundreds of other Western Pennsylvania students. 4 Pine-Richland students placed in the competition. Sophomore Davin Biagini placed first in Spanish 2, junior Ian Bowen second in French 3, junior Lavina Jathesh second in Spanish 3, and sophomore Maddie DeRigo third in Spanish 2. Senior Vasily Beloris was named to the Pittsburgh Steelers all-peer team. Vasily is one of 11 students from the region selected for going above and beyond to provide mentor-like support to teammates. A 2-year football team captain with a history of academic excellence, including a near-perfect SAT score and perfect ACT score, Vasily mentors many teammates while playing football and basketball. He leads the team's volunteer activities and also serves as a referee for the youth basketball program. Junior Will Hilton competed in the PIAA 3A Golf Championship at Penn State last week after a top 10 finish at the WPIAL 3A Individual Championship on October 2nd. Head football coach John Ladon was named the Pittsburgh Steelers High School Coach of the Week following the Pine-Richland Central Catholic game on October 6th. He will be recognized prior to halftime on October 29th during the Steelers game against Jacksonville. The football program will receive a $1,000 donation from the Steelers and the NFL Foundation. Pine-Richland High School was named the Pennsylvania Communication Association's William S. Tacey High School of the Year on September 30th for its dedication to the forensic speech and debate team and for providing a flourishing legacy of effective communicators, opportunities, and resources for students. The forensic speech and debate team is coached by Ms. Jagriti Deshora, Mrs. Letitia Harshman, and Ms. Kaylee Zymanski. Retired Pine-Richland teacher and 1972 Richland High School graduate Ron Schmeidel was named the recipient of the Pennsylvania Association for Gifted Education's Neuber-Pregler Award for 2023. This award is given to individuals who have dedicated years of service to gifted students in Pennsylvania. Mr. Schmeidel retired from Pine-Richland School District in 2020. And lastly, as we're here at Beatty tonight, I wanted to highlight some of the incredible things happening here involving our students. I invited students to attend to talk about their programs and post-graduation plans. So with us tonight is Nathan Bateman, who's a senior in the automotive technology program. Nathan, could you step up to the podium and tell us about your program?
As she said, my name is Nathan Bateman. I've been at A.W. Beatty Career Center since my sophomore year, so I'm now in my 3rd year as an automotive tech student. I'm also a participant in the co-op program here, which means that 4 days a week, I'm at Rudolph's Automotive, which is where I work, and I'm only here on Mondays. This allows you to kind of get a better feel for the field that you're going into before graduation and before going to schooling after, so that you know that that's what you want to do. But also A.W. Beatty has allowed me to explore something that at one point was kind of just a hobby, and it's allowed me to turn that into a career that I enjoy doing. And I've always been more hands-on of a learner, and I'm not the best at sitting still in a classroom. So A.W. Beatty has allowed me to thrive in that way by teaching hands-on, not only in the classroom, but also out in the lab, where we have a full-blown workshop with many different types of equipment that you'll run into in the field. And then also A.W. Beatty truly does, in my opinion, have some of the best instructors there is, because they truly care about the students, not just getting the paycheck or whatever. They truly take the time to know every student, and you're with them for 2 hours a day rather than just being with them for 45 minutes. So you truly do feel that connection that you don't always feel in just the standard classroom setting.
Nathan, if I may, I just
Anybody
curious.
have any questions?
Don't want to put you on your spot, but what are your future plans? Are you going to do additional schooling, or are you going to go right into the workforce? And
I'm not totally sure yet. That is also another great thing about Beatty, is it kind of leaves that option open, that you can go and do more schooling, but you can also just jump straight into the workforce.
and overall, how do you feel about your decision to come here?
I think it was probably one of my best high school decisions.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. We'll move into item 1.03, recognition of visitors. A lot of new faces here today, so I think we have,
We have two online, so we can start with our first online person,
yes.
who is Marcy Fisher. Mr. Stobener? Hi, Mrs. Fisher?
Hello?
Hi, you're on with the board.
Hi, this is Marcy Fisher from Richland Township. I have two teens in the district. My talk today is directed to the Pine-Richland administration, Pine-Richland board directors, and to those who support our school at Beatty. First, I would like to express gratitude to the Beatty program for giving students options for their education. I always wanted to have a reason for my teens to use the services at Beatty. I always felt it would be neat for them to have a trade and or college preparation for flexibility of careers in life. It doesn't look like we will be participating in their vocational program, but we have used the facility in different ways. My oldest son has intellectual disabilities, and for anyone else who goes through this transition, you may have also found that the transition to adulthood is unclear and confusing to navigate. Not only do we as parents lose access to all medical contact with providers, there is a need to establish powers of attorney and all kinds of other educational preparations that need to be arranged. I found the transition to adulthood for my son to be one of the hardest transitions for my family. For those who don't know, there is a post-secondary transition fair yearly at Beatty for students who may need support beyond high school. I went to the one last year in March of 2023 after my son's transition counselor from Pine-Richland and a special education teacher told me about it. The next one is scheduled for Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 from 6 to 8 p.m. for those who will benefit from that. It's sponsored by the Northern Area School Districts. At this fair at Beatty, there are different options like the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, different day programs, colleges, and even Achieva shows up to talk about financial planning and even longer-term life planning issues. There's also food and raffles that make the event more comfortable. I found this fair to be useful in gathering information about options, as well as eliminating options that don't apply to us. I'm grateful that even those with the most significant transition planning needs are recognized and supported at the transition fair hosted at Beatty. Pine-Richland has a legacy of empathy towards students with special needs. My aunt reminds our family that some of this has dated back to the 1980s, where the Pine-Richland School District was known for valuing and being able to educate all students before there were consistent programs everywhere. There are programs now such as Best Buddies, Peer-to-Peer, and Unified Bocce that reflect a reverse inclusion model where typical peers push into the special education programs, as well as other activities to provide inclusion at school. I feel this culture of inclusion can only continue with the support from the community and school personnel. I just wanted to express my gratitude that the Pine-Richland School District works toward focusing on learning for every
Ms.
student
Fisher,
every day.
if you could wrap up your comments, please.
Okay, yes. Thank you to those at school who work tirelessly for the benefit of the students. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take a in-person speaker, and the first one is Cynthia Vogel.
Good evening. I count it a privilege to be here this evening and to share with you my experience with the Pine-Richland School District. My husband and I pastor at Church at the Heights in Gibsonia. We've been there for 33 years. All three of our children graduated from Pine-Richland. I found Pine-Richland to be a very family-friendly environment. We faced several different difficulties during our years here at Pine-Richland. Some had to do with bullying. Others had to do with my daughter expressing her faith. But we were able to resolve amicably the issues with teachers, principals, and I just felt like my children had a safe environment to grow up in the Pine-Richland School District, and I appreciate all of your effort, all of your energy. I know what it's like to be a public servant, and I know the sacrifice it's made. I just recently understood that some of the upcoming school board candidates are running on a ticket that is promoting uncensored materials, and that's my concern most of all. I felt pretty safe through the years. My youngest child graduated in 2011 with the understanding that parents were in control of controversial issues, especially sexual content. And I really believe that one of the main things that is the heart of this school board is to protect children from pornographic and explicit materials that can be found in this library. And I'm concerned about the future, and I want to express to you that it's really critically important that each of us examine the things that our children are reading. From my own personal experience, being exposed to sexual content too early is a very, very serious thing. It will wound and break the soul of a child. It will expose and awaken things in a child that should not be awakened. A child does not have the maturity to be able to process these types of sexual content. I believe, and I think you do as well, that we should protect the innocence of children. When I grew up, I was violated as a 4-year-old by a 16-year-old boy, and that affected my life in a very serious way. It took me years to overcome it, and by the grace of God, I was able to move forward. But one thing I know, and I've learned, that you cannot feed children materials that they are not mature enough.
If you could please wrap up your comments.
Yes, are not mature enough to handle. So I appreciate it if you would examine the literature that is in the Pine-Richland School District, and that we would keep our hearts and minds on educating and protecting our children in a day and age where there is so much violence and so much perversion. And I appreciate the fact that this has been a safe school district, and I pray that God will grant you the grace to continue to be that.
Thank you. Next,
We'll go to our next online speaker.
online, yes, thank you.
Jackie D. Mr. Stovener?
I'm sorry, I missed the name.
It's Jackie D.
Jackie D, okay.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, yes.
Hey,
Barb?
you're on with the board. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Greg, Mr. DiTullio, there's no video tonight, so I don't know why, if you're meeting at Beatty, the video didn't start on time when you called the meeting to order, so I want to address the, yes. Okay, I turned my sound off, so I can't hear myself.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a lag in the video, sorry.
Yes, Barb was talking to me and I was talking, so I got it. So, Mr. Stebner, maybe we can have some classical music prior to the meetings when we're waiting, or a high school band concert.
Yeah.
Anyway, my comments prior to the meeting are about the academic achievement meeting on October 9th that I watched the archive of. And there was one break point in the meeting that I will discuss later, but I would just like to say, watching that meeting, it was rather an insult to the intelligence of an educated, thinking person. It was an academic achievement meeting, and a lot of the discussion was about band, which is an elective, and it sort of was it was questioning what was going on. So with the exception of the biology discussion, there was really no data analysis. There was no reflection on the data. There was no discussion of whether there was a need for considering higher standards across certain subject areas. There was no discussion of goals that you would like to reach as a school district. Pine-Richland is well rated, but it's still number 12 in the Pittsburgh area. So that means there's obviously some room somewhere for some improvement. So pointing out after watching the meeting that Dr. P did talk about data summits and data analysis and insinuated that there would be this ongoing. But where is the data? That is the information that parents want to hear, and taxpayers. They want to hear a serious conversation about the details of getting there. And I just thought, I was a little shocked at the way the meeting was structured. And so talking about previously the proficiencies lost during COVID, you would expect that those data analysis and a process to improve those and get back to the level of proficiency that was previous to COVID, at least, if not higher, would have been discussed. For maybe the biology was the bright point in the meeting where that was an expected academic achievement presentation. I just want...
If you could wrap up your comments,
yeah,
please.
Yeah. Okay. The purpose of the Sunshine Law, as a reminder, is for transparency and information. And I just think that people, the parents and taxpayers of Pine-Richland, need to trust that they're being dealt with honestly. And I think that a little more transparency with the academic achievement presentations would be appreciated by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Reina Santiago.
Hi, Reina Santiago. I have one child that's graduated from Pine-Richland and one still in the district.
You might want to speak a little closer to the microphone. Sorry, these ones pick up a little. Yeah.
So I wanted to speak on a particular Pine-Richland policy 815. This is the policy that you ask both parent and child to sign by reviewing and consenting to it. And this policy is in regards to acceptable use of internet, computer, and network resources. And so under this policy, it defines child pornography, materials that are harmful to minors, and materials that are obscene. So I just wanted to define a few of those. So the term child pornography under state law is any book, magazine, pamphlet, slide, photograph, film, videotape, computer depiction, or other material depicting a child under the age of 18 years engaging in a prohibited sexual act or in a simulation of such act. And the term harmful to minors under state law is any depiction or representation in whatever form of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse. That's a hard one to say. When it, number one, predominantly appeals to the prurient, shameful, or morbid interest of minors. Number two is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for minors. And number three, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, educational, or scientific value for minors. And the term obscene in any material or performance, if, number one, the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the subject matter taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest, two, the subject matter depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct described in the law to be obscene, and number three, the subject matter taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, educational, or scientific value. Sorry to go through all that. So under the authority of the school district, the policy states that the district reserves the right to monitor, track, and log network access, and to use or deny access to prevent unauthorized, inappropriate, or illegal activity, and may revoke access, privileges, and/or administer appropriate disciplinary action. Further down, it states specifically that the district operates and enforces a technology protection measure that blocks or filters internet access to an inappropriate matter by minors. These are all great things, and it's good to see that Pine-Richland is taking steps to protect our kids from explicit material online. So, how can we agree that certain material is harmful to our children and therefore develop policies to prevent our children from accessing it online, yet these same materials are allowed in our school libraries?
Ms. Santiago, if you could wrap up.
That's all I got.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Our next speaker is Eli Santiago.
Good evening. I only have 3 minutes, and I wish I had more time because a lot of the things that were described today as the accomplishments and the achievements of our students are phenomenal. I'd love to spend a ton of time doing that. And what the student from Beatty described as his choices for vocational career and in this particular school, wonderful. I mean, those are things we want to hear more about. And I wish I could spend really all my time talking about that, but I'm pressed with bringing to your attention something that I think we all need to be reminded of. Our children, when they enter the school building and become your students, are still our children. And as such, we are the parents, and we have the rights, responsibilities, and authority to make sure that what's going on in the school is consistent with the way we raise our kids. I am troubled with a policy that we have challenged the administration on and on and on again, that if a student expresses gender identity issues, gender confusion issues, issues about transgender to a teacher, that teacher is encouraged through policy and in staff meetings to ensure that that conversation never makes it back to the parent. How is that possible? How could someone even promote that? And then we're asked to sign online this agreement that says we agree with the principles of discipline and school policy, and I don't even know what the name of that document is. I haven't signed it because that document contains our agreement with Administrative Regulation 103, which is the one I just described. You know, we're concerned about the mental health of our kids. We're concerned about all of the problems we're facing. And yet, when we introduce a program that says take the kids off campus for an hour to teach them about love, faith, and hope, we have to fight for that. And yet, we find that we don't even have, people don't even know that in our schools, in our public libraries, there are books that promote promiscuity, pornography, and all of the harm that that brings with it. And we have to actually have a conversation as to why and how did it even make it there? What are we doing? This administration wants us to trust it, and yet it seems like day in, day out, the things that they do betray that public trust. This needs to stop.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jay Gilbert.
Good evening. I'm addressing you all because I just got the news about some of the different rules that are coming out concerning the pornography. and the
Mr.
things
Gilbert,
that-
just, you're new to us, sorry. I'm just where you live, et cetera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I am very, very new. I live here in Wexford, and my children are in the Pine-Richland area. Any other information you need?
We're new, so.
Okay,
A lot of the
no,
speakers
thank
we
you.
know, and we know their residents, so.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know. I am new, and not new to the area, but new to this board, and hopefully I can get a couple of my seconds back. But anyways, it's really been on my heart, though, because I don't think we understand. The Bible says in Romans 13, I am a pastor here in this area, and that all authority comes from God. And I want everyone here to be on notice that every one of you one day will answer before God for how you vote and how you live and for what it is that you do. Each and every one of us will give an account of that. And what we do with our children and the authority that we have, God holds us accountable for. And if you think about it for a moment, when you start giving children and teenagers the opportunity to pick their gender and to be able to read this type of promiscuity and how to put on a condom and all this type of filth and things that are coming out, it continues to breed that type of thing in our school system. And if we think it's bad now, it's going to continue to get worse. You have the opportunity to make a stop. You have an opportunity to stand for what is right. Kids don't need to have that type of stuff running through their minds. They have enough stuff to worry about dealing with peer pressure and everything else. If we want to see depression drop, if we want to see a lot of those things, mental health leave, then we have to stop filling their minds with things that the Bible clearly says that are not correct. And the reason why I'm here is because God has called us to this area as well. My children live in this area. All these people that are here today are voices. And I tell you what, if you think these chairs are full tonight, continue down this path and they will get more full. Because there are many people that are not happy with where this is going. And I just heard about this. We just heard about a week and a half or so ago. And you see the people that are already here. We're coming. We are coming because we are going to stand up for our children. We are going to stand up for what is right. And many of you may not even know what's right and what's wrong. And that's the reality. When no longer is a man, a woman, a boy, a girl, all truth has gone out of the window. And you have opened the door to anything to happen. The Bible says in the book of Judges that in that time, every man does what's right in their own eyes. The last thing you want is young kids walking around with guns, shooting, killings, and everything else because there's no law. You're saying you can be anything you want, do anything you want, even if it defies the laws of nature. So I want you to strongly consider this. Think about these things and think about how you will vote, because one day we will all give an answer to God for how we have lived.
Our next speaker is Therese Dawson.
Therese Dawson, okay.
First of all, I am shocked that you would have asked that man to prove who he was. Never saw that before. There is a great deal of concern in our society right now some of them are sitting right in front of me. There's a hot topic in our community, so-called book banning. Well, I call it another way, anti-porn or porn. Pick your poison. Sexually lewd and explicit materials accessible to minors have been available in the database called Destiny at our high school. And all of a sudden today, that was shut down, and the public, another covert operation by this administration. What do you have to hide, administration and school board? Policy 109, 910, and 815, you have some digging to do, school board. The designated authority is mostly in the hands of the superintendent in this so-called team of 10. Do your job. Question what you are being dished. We have had it. We come to these meetings so that you listen to your community. Just like your policy says, Policy 910 endorses community engagement. How is pornographic library material considered quality education according to that, huh? And who designates the authority? How are parents made aware of this? How are parents made aware of what their child checks out of that library? And why did you shut it down? Huh? Well, this administration possesses expertise in methods of concealment through practice of omission, which deceptively withholds information that is expected to be shared. This lack of transparency needs accountability from strong board leadership. And in fact, the so-called team of 10 is more of a rubber stamping machine in this district, because the complex best practices are too difficult for us dumb taxpayers to understand. Now, Policy 903 allows for taxpayers and community members and anyone representing a group or person in the community to be permitted to speak. When I leave this podium, there will be someone speaking on my behalf as a member of this community that I have invited and is my roommate. Do not dare to do what you just did to that other man. Thank you.
Thank you. For awareness, the board policy on public speakers are that the speakers are supposed to identify themselves. We know a lot of the speakers, so when we see a speaker that we don't know, we want to know who they are. And we want to make sure that they're a member of our community and representing a member of our community. That is our policy. That is a policy that has been in place for decades, and members of this audience have also been part of adopting those policies. So just so everyone's aware, that is our policy. So identifying yourself is normal. When a speaker, we had some speakers earlier, most of the speakers we've heard from before, we know these speakers. So that's all that we're asking, is that you identify yourself.
Our next speaker is John Amanchuhi.
My name is John
If you could get
Amanchuku.
closer, I'm sorry, the microphone's not picking you up quite. If you could speak right in, I don't know if it goes up for you. Thank you.
Man, this thing is
Could you restart the timer?
too small, too short,
Sorry.
incompatible with my stature.
Sorry
Not
about that.
enough, you know.
Sean, could you start?
masculinity, I don't know.
Could you start
This
that over,
week,
please?
I can't help myself, man, but you can hear me though, can't you?
I can hear you. I wanted to make sure that the audience online could hear you too.
Well, the video, it's not working tonight, right?
It's just delayed. It's just
Okay.
delayed.
Here we go. Do I get my time back?
Yeah, I'll give it to you.
I'll pause-
But
I'll
you're
pause until-
John, and you are the speaker that Ms. Dawson
Yes,
referred
yes,
to,
yes.
and you are living in our community.
Yes, I'm a roommate. That's exactly right. Can I begin to give my 3-minute speech, please?
Yes, Sean started over.
Thank you so much. Here we go. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, this really doesn't matter to me. If you view the issue of pornography being in the public school system as acceptable, you are part of the problem and don't get comfortable in that chair. I hope that you are voted out on November 7th if you support that kind of filth. I want to read from this book entitled All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, who has an agenda. It says on page 271, he asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. But this was my rectum, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. And he was large. I had previously topped someone who clearly enjoyed it, but he had been enjoying anal sex before I ever came along. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. He then added more lube and tried, which felt better, but not by much. He began stroking in a stroking motion. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. He didn't last long inside of me, thankfully. He gave me a kiss before he pulled out. I didn't stay long, nor did I masturbate after. Page 266. As we kissed, he began unzipping my pants. He reached his hand down and pulled out my dick. He quickly went to giving me head. He then came up and asked me if I wanted to try on him. I said, sure. I began, and he said, watch your teeth. He didn't know I was a virgin, and I did my best to act dominant like my favorite porn star. His body felt great in my mouth. If that isn't pornographic to you, something's wrong with your soul and with your mind, and you have a mental disorder. Let me say this. C.S. Lewis once talked about chestless men. And as I look on this board today, I see a lot of men, more men than I normally see on school boards. There's a man, 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 and there's a man. And I want to appeal to the men that are on the board. No offense to the ladies. I honor all women. I have a wonderful wife and a wonderful daughter. But to the men who are on the board, what if someone sent this book to your son or daughter? Would you embrace it and accept it for Christmas? Or would you find the nearest trash can and throw it in the trash can? As a man, we protect, we speak up. And what's wrong with America today is that many of our men have been neutered by feminists. We have men who have lost the pair of balls, and they fear to speak up because they are threatened by what people will say. So I say to the men with chest to speak up against this filth and make sure that it's removed. And for the men without chest, I hope that you're voted out because you're nothing more than a beta male.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mike Barber.
What's up, everybody? Mike Barber, 5473 Richland Road. I was asked that question to identify myself when I first spoke, so I can relate to that.
Mike, if you could get closer to, sorry,
Gotcha.
These don't
How's
pick up
that?
the same. Yeah, very good. Thank you.
I just want to say,
Thanks for the address, Mike.
yes,
We know that's where you live.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to take the advantage of tonight to voice some appreciation for A.W. and Beatty. As a local resident who steps foot in our schools and goes to the libraries and interacts with the teachers, interacts with the local community, I just want to say that it's amazing to hear what they offer our students. I have kids that go to these schools, so it's interesting. It's amazing to see that my children that are in elementary school that read age-appropriate books that are in the library, that they'll have these opportunities as they get older. I love the idea that that student was talking about, having the options that I didn't even know about until Dr. Mihalik spent some time pointing it out last year. But the opportunities that PR's collaboration with Beatty is, it's something that I wish my school did whenever we were growing up. Like Nate said, I struggled to sit still in class, and I possibly would have loved to have explored some of the tinkering that he was talking about, and then I wouldn't have been hit with like a $1,500 car charge to change my brakes and rotors. I would have possibly known how to do it myself. So if you do side jobs, Nate, hit me up. I got to do some work. But I just want to say thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you, Dr. Justice. Thank you, Dr. P. I really appreciate everybody's effort and time that they sink into our school district. That as a Hants PTO board member, I am very aware of all of the effort and time and energy that everybody on this table sinks into it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lauren Edwards.
Hello. My name is Lauren Edwards. I live on Alder Drive, and I have one child at Richland. I'm here tonight to talk about school culture. The information that is coming out about the sexually explicit books in the middle and high school is very disturbing. And honestly, I hope it motivates the parents who would prefer to think this stuff is not happening in their district to wake up and start paying attention. Thankfully, my 6-year-old is not reading these books, but our family is still being impacted by breakdowns in the school culture. It's very clear. Pine-Richland wants to create a culture of mental health and counseling as part of each child's school experience. I invite you to please walk down the halls of Richland Elementary if you want to see great examples of this concept in open display. But the real issue here, and the most concerning part of the current culture, is the unwillingness, to accommodate the families who do not want to participate in this counseling environment. And this is my personal experience this year in Pine-Richland. I now understand that PR has a K-12 counseling curriculum that is putting the school counselors in the classrooms with our children. This is a practice that the district has stated they would like to expand upon in coming years, but it's already happening. As part of the curriculum, the school counselor came to my son's first grade class to talk to the kids about who their trusted adults are at home and at school. No way. It is not the school district's job to talk to my 6-year-old son about which adults in his life he can trust, period. This is a very big deal in my house, and it's not the domain of the school district. Now, I did follow up with my son's principal to inform her that the school did not have my consent to offer this counseling to my child, and that I disagreed with how the school was implementing the policy that created this curriculum. I was told that my concerns were essentially not valid and that my son would continue to participate. No further discussion was necessary from her, I guess. My point of view to the school board is simply this. There needs to be a shift in the culture so that parents with disagreeing viewpoints are not forced to operate in defense mode. We need to be able to feel comfortable sending our children to school without the constant worry that the home values and parental authority are being disregarded. This is power that we are asking the school board to help parents take back, and it is rightfully ours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Brittany Kindersmith.
You guys hear me? Okay, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm going to leave this on. Hi, my name's Brittany Kindersmith. I live at 5336 Hart Road. I've got 2 kids in the district. I'm happy to be here tonight at AWBD, being newer to the district, and with my kids still being elementary school aged. I didn't really know much about the Career Center here. But the meeting being held here gave me a reason to peruse the website and see what types of programs are offered, and I'm just really excited that the students in Pine-Richland are afforded such wonderful opportunities by our district partnering with this facility. I was a student who personally utilized the Career Center at my own high school, and I also co-opt out half the day to go to a job. So I think it's great that the kids attending Beatty are being afforded the same choices. Mostly I came tonight just to talk about HANTS and my experiences there as a parent so far this year. I wanted to express gratitude to the admin and to the board for placing Mrs. Gearin at the school. Her enthusiasm for the position has been wonderful to experience as a parent. She has implemented programs that have the ability to uplift the students and allow them to view themselves as school leaders and role models to their peers. Each one of my boys have already received either a positive letter in the mail from their teacher or what Mrs. Gearin calls a positive office referral. And they beam with pride over their accomplishments, and Mrs. Gearin is making sure that we as the parents get to witness and share in that excitement with them. And none of it has anything to do with their academic achievement. It has to do with displaying citizenship and demonstrating social emotional regulation skills. It allows the kids in school who aren't always getting recognized for high marks on their assessments to be bragged about and spotlighted. And it reminds our kids that there is so much more to life than test taking and homework and grades and sitting still. It affirms to me that our school cares about sending my kids to Eden Hall not only as prepared learners, but also as prepared citizens of a community. I've heard a lot of complaints about learning loss and concerns over spending time teaching our kids anything under the umbrella of social emotional learning, but I think Mrs. Gearin is showing that small changes can foster big results in the lives of the students at Pine-Richland without impacting any learning time at all. Finally, I would just like to say that for the 2 years that I've lived in PR, this has been the makeup of the school board. Most of the people in the room tonight, I have never seen you at a school board meeting before.
Please
So
address me. Please
I'm
address the
sorry
boards.
that everyone is so concerned, but these folks have been here all this time for
If you could wrap up your comments now.
Yeah, sorry. These folks have been here all this time for you to talk to them, and if you don't like the way that things are, they've had the majority, so vote them out.
Thank you. Before we move on, just a couple points. I believe one of the speakers had talked about the academic achievement. I think the academic achievement meeting that they will be most interested in is Thursday, November 16th. That's the big academic achievement meeting every year. That's where all our data comes out. We pour through it. It's a wonderful meeting every year. It's about 2 hours. We really dive into the data, so I look forward to that every year. It's an off-day meeting. It's a Thursday. Starts at 6 o'clock. We slate it for 2 hours. Sometimes it goes a little more because there's a lot of really good discussion. So if you're interested in the academic achievement and looking at numbers, that's the day that you want to look at. Some other folks had addressed some things with library books, and just wanted to refer folks to Policy 1091, which is related to our library resources. That policy does include a provision that allows the district stakeholders, parents and other folks within the district to request a reconsideration of books in the library. In the past week, the district received requests for recommendations on approximately a dozen library books at the high school and or middle school. Again, there's a committee that gets formed and goes through this. That provision and this policy has been in place for a little over a decade now. These are the first 12 or 13, I think we're up to now, requests that we've ever received. So there's approximately 20-some thousand books, maybe more than that, in the library. So I know me personally, I can't speak for everyone. I appreciate when these are brought to our attention. Again, these being the first times that these requests have been made. We're going to work through these requests and look at the reconsideration of the titles that we've got. If somebody has a concern and brings it to the board, brings it to the administration, and then we'll apply the policy as is. This policy, again, has been in place roughly unchanged for a decade with this provision, and we last looked at it last year. So that's the policy that we're working through on many of these issues that folks are, that address tonight. So we'll move to item 1.04, correspondence. Ms. Williams.
The following people emailed the board regarding books in school libraries: Eli Santiago, Shelley Rinaldo, Amy Cray, Leslie Miller, Kiera Anderson, and Christy Harrer. Allison Duncan emailed the board about recognition of visitors.
Thank you. Item 1.05 is a motion to approve the meeting minutes as attached.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.01 is an information item on key initiatives quarterly update.
Okay, so with respect to the strategic plan, each year we identify those areas that are key or most critical to the district. Every quarter, we provide a brief narrative update on progress made. And so I'll pause here to see if there are any questions from board members on that update. Okay, just a couple of things to add. Mr. DiTullio talked about the Academic Achievement and Growth meeting on our website. So on our website, if you go to Pine-Richland.org, if you go to academics across the top, you see academic achievement. Every academic achievement and growth report since we started that practice in 2013 is listed there. So we publicly post more data and information about our student achievement results on standardized tests than any public school I'm aware of. So from 2013 to present, we have PSSA results, we have Keystone results, we have AP and SAT and ACT. We've added growth measures and additional assessments that we use in the district in order to not only share that with our community, but to invite our staff into those meetings to talk about the strategies that are being used in the classroom to continue to improve student performance. So again, on the web, we see it on the website right now. Every report that we have done is listed there. And I don't know that you could find a public school district that more transparently shares data and information about student results than we see. The last academic achievement meeting that we had was an additional meeting. We have added multiple additional meetings at request of the board to continue dialogue. The focus of that meeting was on instructional strategies. So the music example that was shared by Dr. Pasquinelli had to do with the instructional strategies used by the teacher. Those strategies with the marching band are different than might be used in a classroom in mathematics, but are just as critical. He then talked about biology results and how Data Summit was used to drive improvement in those courses, followed by an extensive discussion of early literacy, which is a significant part of our school district. So the point of all of this is that academic achievement is really about not only the curriculum, so exceeding the standards for our locally developed curriculum by our staff, with our parents and students. It is also about the assessments that we use in our classrooms, and it is about the instructional strategies. All of those together are what help lead to growth and achievement in the classroom. The strategic plan quarterly update. Our strategic plan, Mr. Stobener, if you're driving, you can go to our website and go to strategic plan. And at that site, you're able to see not only what we're working on and focused on this year, 23-24, but you could, don't do it, but you could go back, it's live, nothing's been changed, we've not changed anything with access to anything. You could go back and look at this and see every single initiative that we've worked on for the past 3 long-term planning cycles in this district. It's all there. It all lives there historically, because there's not a single thing that we have done in the effort to improve the Pine-Richland School District that we have not talked about publicly, that we have not worked collaboratively with our staff, and that we have not intentionally engaged our parents in opportunities to participate, be aware of, and connect to. We can improve. We've said it. I am so proud of this school district for our continuous improvement and growth. Do we have things we have to do better? Yes. Do we listen when concerns are expressed? Yes. And we take action based upon the concerns that we hear. So again, this quarterly update is here. We will continue to provide them. We will provide updates on everything else. But I'm proud of the work that we do as a district. And there is no question, there is no doubt that the work and focus of this district is documented on our website for the entire world to see, and has been, and will continue to be.
Any discussion? Okay, item 2.02 is an information item on sustainability to producing sustainability and reducing the environmental footprint.
I'll take that for you. So we have been doing some great work with our students. We have a 6-school club. This is the first 6-school club that we've had within the district related to sustainability. And it partners with a Sustainability Leadership Council in which the students are focused right now on recycling efforts. And so we've had 2 meetings so far with the students, and then we had our first Leadership Council meeting this past week where we had both Pine and Richland townships engaged, and they're asking us to help co-plan. So the students are in the role of leaders and local governance in terms of trying to help facilitate an Earth Day event for the spring. So the students have come up with some ideas, and we are working with them right now through a few iterative processes to do that. We're also looking to have some recycling vendors come in and speak with the students, but we're learning a lot. And tomorrow they're also taking a field trip to Student Transportation of America to do an electric school bus event. So we've arranged for busing between the schools to the depot where the kids will get to ride on one of the school buses. We have a few in our fleet, and we'll celebrate what that looks like. But our kids are doing some awesome things. So if you get a chance at some point in the spring to join that event at Pine Township, that would be outstanding. We're gonna have a little booth to share more about what the kids have been up to.
Any discussions or questions on sustainability?
I just wanted to add, through my son's involvement, I've learned that one of the great things about the council, and this is definitely deliberate in getting feedback from students and families. One of the rich ways that our students can interact with each other is when we see grade level spans. And so there are a number of programs throughout the district, and it could be a sports team, reading at the lower elementary. This is another example. This is unique in that it spans K through 12, so we have kids at all different grade levels, and they participate as students, as age appropriate. So we know that they find that rewarding. It is, of course, a heavy lift. It needs to be done with care and intention and moderation where appropriate, but it's another reason why it's so rewarding, I know, for the students who participate, so thank you.
Absolutely, and it is growing. So the students who have participated in the primaries in the past then go on and they're part of the Eden Hall team, and it's building each year because we're finding 2nd and 3rd graders every year to add, and so we're up to about 30 students across the district who sit as representatives on the council, and that will continue to grow, and they liaise with all the students in the building. So thank you for adding that.
All right, we'll move to item 3.01, and this is a consent agenda. Many of these items we talked about at the planning meeting. Motion to approve consent agenda items 3.02 through 3.10 as listed.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Finance, Mr. Kashani.
Yes, sir. Item 4.01. Motion to approve the financial reports dated August 31st, 2023, and to approve the accounts payable dated October 23rd, 2023, in the amount of $405,059.79, and paid accounts for September, October in the amount of $2,811,025.26 as listed.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Yes. Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 4.02, motion to approve budget transfers in the amount of $146,206.09 as attached.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yay, budget transfers.
Yeah.
First ones of the year. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes.
And item 4.03 is just informational that on December 11th, we will have our next finance governance meeting. And it will include the standing topics of the annual audited financials and then the budget for next year.
Thank you, Mr. Kashani. Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Cassidy.
Item 5.01 is an information item regarding a summary of change orders as attached. I don't know if Mr. Zimmerman's on. Discuss? No? All right.
Any discussion on that item? Okay.
5.02 is an information item. A building and grounds governance meeting is scheduled on November 13th, 2023, beginning at 6 p.m. Capital funding plan will be the topic.
If I could mention something with that. Okay, so we talked briefly, this is a really important meeting on the 13th. It's finance, it's buildings and grounds as a meeting, but there are financial elements to that we want to talk about with respect to the capital funding plan. So this board is aware of some pretty significant financial information that's been a part of our past. So as an example, we just opened the new renovated main gym at the high school, and there's another part of that project that's almost finished. So significant project. We have also finished phase 1 of the middle school HVAC replacement project, which has been going well. So together, these are significant, close to $9 million or so in costs for these two projects alone. We have been investing, as the board knows, $2.5 to $4 million on capital funding in recent years. In the last decade, we've gone from debt being 14.5% of our operating budget to 8.5%. We've been able to make these kind of improvements in our facilities while cutting debt from 14.5% to 8.5%. We have not taken on new debt anytime soon. We have refinanced whenever we've had the opportunity through the discussion of the board. These are unbelievable outcomes. We have one of the lowest millage rates in all of Allegheny County. And as we think about, we've done enrollment and demographic studies, everything I'm talking about is available on the website. Every single thing we're saying is available with all the benchmarking. But the major things that we have coming and what we need to talk about a bit on November 13th is the major HVAC and roof projects that are upcoming. Richland HVAC and Wexford are both at a place where we need to, they're on the capital funding plan, but we may need to discuss moving particularly Richland up and see what the impact of that is. Now, fund balance, we are in the strongest financial position we have ever been in. Capital Reserve Fund, we are in the strongest financial we've ever been in. Every single financial metric that you can have, we are in the strongest financial position that we have ever been in. But those HVAC projects are major. We have another one, again, that we will need to consider as well. At Hance eventually, we have multiple roof projects. So Mr. Zimmerman, we will be working prior to the 13th. We will be in contact with Mr. Cassidy just to talk through. We'll make sure the board has information in advance, but that's going to be a really important discussion to think about. In particular, can that Richland project be moved up in the cycle, and how can we manage that? Again, we've had one, as the board knows, one tax increase in the last decade. It was 1.97% in 2017-18. So we have had one millage increase. We have the best financial reserves we've ever been in, and we have the least risk in our debt portfolio that we've had. So we're in a good position to have the dialogue, but it is going to be an important one on November 13th. Thank you.
And that is a day of a combined meeting as well. So we will have until 7 o'clock. A lot to cover in an hour, so come prepared to talk with specific questions.
Yeah, so we've done the sand, the small rocks, right, Mr. Kershaw? These are boulders. HVAC and roof, they're boulders, so we need to be ready for it.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Academic achievement, I'm going to kick this to.
Yeah, I'll take this for Dr. Meyer. So item 6.01, information item, the board toured Beatty today before our meeting, and we had a lovely meal provided. It was a great experience. You heard a little bit about it. I think we're extremely fortunate. I know we are extremely fortunate that we have this opportunity for our students, and it was fantastic to hear from Nathan today. And you know, this is honestly my first time I've been here. I've never been able to come to the open house, and it was great. It's phenomenal, the stuff that go on here. So it's great to see.
I'll just say dinner was fantastic,
Dinner,
but
yes.
it was it was amazing to walk into the surgical center, right? Like the technology that's there for the students to learn from was absolutely amazing. If you've ever been in an operating room, I mean, it's an operating room. It's just there's not a live person there getting operated on, but there's a lot of things that make it really lifelike. So, you know, I've never operated on anyone, but I can tell you this, that what I saw in there was rather impressive. It looks just like a regular OR, and the technology that they put into for lack of a better term, the dummy, if you will, that they're doing procedures on, and then to hear them talk about. That's the surgical, but they also do, and this was pretty amazing to me, they do an actual search and rescue out on the grounds here with students that are driving the drones. They locate the individual in distress. They get the individual in distress with the EMT, the folks that are studying EMT. They bring them in and triage them with the nurses. They also order the meds from the pharmacy side, and they take the person in distress, if you will, over to the surgical center to be operated on. So this is real life experience that these kids are getting, and these are high school kids. You know, so I think of where I was in high school, and if you asked me to be a part of triaging somebody, you would not have wanted me to do it. So it was rather impressive to see everything that they're doing and making it real life experience. I mean, kids are coming out of here with the ability to go to work, and those that are pursuing, and a lot of them do pursue further education. I know my daughter's a nurse, and what she's moving into, I wish she would have pursued this at Beatty. She did fine in school. She was well prepared, but the preparation that she would have had coming from this would have been amazing. So it's my 2 cents on it.
Hey, Mr. DiTolio, just a couple things with that too. Just for the sake of board and community, we have had an awareness committee since 2018 around building student and family awareness for Beatty and all that it offers. And we've done a lot of work with Beatty. They mentioned today that as early as Eden Hall, Beatty visits our schools and starts introducing our students to some of the programs that they offer. And then we continue that at the middle school and then obviously at the high school as well. So like when we recently had the open house at the high school, Beatty was there and they had some things on display for parent awareness as well. So it's not meant to be like trying to build numbers. It's more just awareness of all that Beatty has to offer for our kids and families, and we'll continue to do that. But just want to showcase some of that. They've been more than willing to come out to us and show us what they have to offer, which has really benefited our kids.
Greg, I want to follow up with one thing that you had said and you pointed out, and you asked a question of the instructor. You know, there's a misconception sometimes that Beatty is used as an alternative to college or for students who, maybe have no interest in college. And in fact, we found that out today with the surgical tech, that it often, in fact, complements further study and secondary study. They may be a 2-year school, it may be a 4-year school. In surgical tech, there are programs at the PhD level that could be pursued. And certainly we heard from a student tonight that continuing education after Beatty is a very viable option for these students. It's not a just go to Beatty and then go to work. It offers the freedom to possibly work, go to school at the same time, and exploring a career. So I think that's also important for our families to know.
Yeah, sorry, I know I'm beating this horse, if you will, but on that, it was very interesting to hear the majors that some of the kids are going into, and specifically medical. There's several pre-med students that had graduated last year. There are Pitt Dental, and if anyone knows Pitt Dental, it's a very hard dental school to get into. They've got 3 folks from Beatty last year are in that program. Nurses going into CRNA, and if you know anything about CRNA, it's a very hard discipline to get in from nursing. So we're talking highest levels of furthering education. So Beatty is not the place to go to stop your schooling, if you will. It is a place that kids can go and grow. And as our speaker today talked, some kids learn way more hands-on, and this is practical stuff. So it's pretty exciting to see. I would have loved these kind of opportunities when I was a kid. So student services, Ms. Hillman.
Agenda item 7.01 is a motion to approve the attached list of PTO and booster organizations as recognized in accordance with School Board Policy 915, Booster Parent Organizations.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question. I know that girls wrestling is a new. I know that girls wrestling is a new sport, and I didn't see a boosters for them listed. Are they covered under another boosters, or are they still forming the boosters?
They're with the wrestling program. So the way we approved that last year is they would be part of the wrestling program, so they should be included with that booster.
With the wrestling
With
boosters?
wrestling, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item 7.02 is a motion to approve the Small Games of Chance resolution as attached for the 2023-24 school year.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item 7.03 is an information item for board consideration at the combined November meeting is a motion to approve the student attendance and application of the student discipline code for the 7th and 8th grade choir and orchestra ensemble to travel to Hershey, PA from Friday, May 10th, 2024 to Saturday, May 11th, 2024 to participate in the music competition and adjudication as described on the attached field trip request form. Agenda item 7.04 is an information item for board consideration at the combined November 13th meeting. A motion to approve the student attendance and application of the student discipline code for the Pine-Richland competitive cheerleading team to travel to Orlando, Florida from Wednesday, February 7th, 2024 to Monday, March 12th, 2024 to participate in the high school national competitive spirit competition as described on the attached field trip request form.
I got to check the dates on that they're not going, yeah.
They're not going
So
for
they're not going that long. That's my fault, I apologize.
Agenda item 7.05 is an information item for board consideration at the combined November 13th, 2023 meeting is a motion to approve the attached agreement with Interact Therapy to provide assistant technology services on an as-needed basis as described in the attached proposal letter and clinical consulting agreement.
That is February 12th, not March.
If no objections, I think 703 through 705 could be moved to a consent agenda, provided the dates are corrected. Staff Services, Mrs. Bursalis.
Item 8.01 is a motion to approve the PREA, PRESPA personnel and athletic, non-athletic supplementals.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 8.02 is a motion to approve the revised Act 93 compensation agreement.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 8.03 is a motion to approve the attached agreement amendment with Maxim Healthcare Services for healthcare staffing.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes.
Item 8.04 is an information item for board consideration at the combined November meeting is a motion to approve in accordance with policy 109.1 library resources, the weeding of Pine-Richland High School library resources as attached.
Any discussions?
Item 8.05 is also an information item. And I'm going to turn this one over to Mr. Glickman.
Thank you, Mrs. Bursalis. So what I'll share is this has been a standing item on our agenda for the past few months. I'm looking around and seeing a more crowded space, and so What I want to do is engage and implore you all to like go home and tell a couple people you know, right? So we are actively recruiting for paraprofessional and custodian opportunities in our district. Both of these are opportunities where individuals get to come and contribute to meaningful work. Following tonight's actions that were just approved, we're still looking to hire 4 more custodians, 3 full-time and 1 part-time, as well as 3 paraprofessionals across the district. We do have on the agenda flyers. We also have this Friday an opportunity fair that we're going to be hosting in partnership with some of our key partners, Kelly Services, Sodexo, and Student Transportation of America. This Friday afternoon at Pine-Richland Stadium, 1 to 4 p.m., we will have representatives from everywhere I just said on site to engage with individuals and to do on-site interviews. You have the ability to RSVP, give us a heads up if you're coming, or if you could, share with somebody else to get them to come. But walk-ins will obviously be welcome as well. Thanks so much.
Please tell a friend or 2 or 3. It's absolutely fantastic benefits. I think that's not looked at sometimes enough, but it's great benefits. And I can speak personally. I mean, well, first of all, if you go through our schools, we are short-staffed on custodians, and they are doing an outstanding job. When we did a school tour at Eden Hall, the turnover time that they had in between lunches was so minimal, and they did an absolutely fantastic job. The paraprofessionals, again, I speak near and dear to my heart. My daughter had a paraprofessional for years in this school because of her disability. They are absolutely critical to the functioning of this school district, and they do an exceptional job. And it's very rewarding. Some of my daughter's best friends are her paras throughout the year. She celebrated her 21st birthday a few weeks ago, and there were 4 paraprofessionals that she's had in her life at her 21st birthday, and some of them haven't worked with her in years. So it's from their standpoint, I know the paras in here, it's a very rewarding job as well. From a parent standpoint, I can't imagine my daughter's life without them. So, operational services, Mr. Lyons.
Thanks, Greg. Item 9.01 is a motion to approve the purchase of licenses for Google Workspace, a 3-year agreement in the amount of $20,700 per year.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll get to board business, and well, it's a discussion item around the 2024 PSBA legislative platforms, which will be voted on by the delegates. Our delegates are Mrs. Hillman and Mrs. Bursalis, and the delegate meeting will be November 4th, 2023. It will also be available for us online as non-voting delegates, as board members. We can watch the proceedings as well, but just want to open it up to general discussion.
So Greg, we'll be discussing the items that came out of the platform committee. So there's several items that are listed in the handbook. So we'll have a discussion and then a vote on Saturday. So anyone that wants to listen can listen in, and then Christine and I will participate in the voting after discussion.
And just from my standpoint, I'll only speak for me. We had, as a board, elected Ms. Bursalis and Ms. Hillman as our delegates. And when they get to the delegate assembly, there's going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of things that may not have come up prior with the other delegates. So there's going to be a lot more information that's going to pour into you guys as you're deciding on different. I know it happened a lot last year as well. So, I'm looking forward to the discussion. I'm hoping that I can attend this online, but I'm also looking forward to the feedback afterward. I know that there was discussion around it last year, but again, as our voting delegates, you're our representatives, and that's where I'm putting my stamp, if you will. So I can't speak for everyone else, but that's me.
Yeah, so do you have any opinion on these? These are relatively straightforward and simple amendments because there's nothing you'll be voting on or asked to consider other than that which is listed in this document, right?
Correct.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
I guess at a high level, Greg, it sounds good. There's more information coming, but when I consider the simple statement and these simple amendments, I'm like, what additional information would be coming? Is it possible to offer an opinion on the modifications on page 17? Set tuition should be established for regular ed and tier tuition for special ed amendment. Is there any opinion that could be offered at this time on these items?
What page is that on, Peter?
Page 17 of the Delegate Assembly Handbook? Or perhaps the additional subparagraph K, also on page 17. I mean, I appreciate that you deliberate, but you guys are attending virtually as well, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm wondering how much, and please, if there is actual concrete information, because although, Greg, you're saying there was, to be clear, we asked for what it was, and I never saw that information. So I'd love, if there is information that enlightens us.
I'm not sure what
What are
you're
you
talking about.
Yeah,
So,
What's your question?
can you offer an opinion about paragraph K, the amendment? Do you have one? Go ahead.
I support
looking at
that they're eliminating K, and I support that elimination of that clause. And removing the moratorium. Or there is no moratorium, but not pushing for a moratorium.
And the new K?
There is no new
There
K,
is
they're
no-
just
that's
eliminating
That's
it.
striking it out.
And I support
The
striking it
red,
out.
the red one below it, though?
Oh,
just moved
that's
up?
a
That's
new
what I'm
one,
saying,
okay.
just-
I see, they're replacing it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
I was,
Right.
so I support striking what they struck. And then K, I feel like we have to wait and see what the discussion is. I think there needs to be some clarification around what additional information that the PSBA is looking for. Like what beyond what already is required by law are they asking for?
Validated current residency. I mean,
Right,
can we
which
call,
don't
can we
we
go to
already
page
do that?
17 so people can see, because
Don't
I
we
think we're
already do
making this
that?
a little more
Well,
complicated.
Peter, right now,
Yeah.
that is the job of the charter schools to validate the residency. So there will be discussion around why the suggestion is to change it to, let's see.
Well, I
school
guess
district. So
apparently
that's the
there may
difference.
be false claims of residency. I'm shocked and appalled to find that. But I mean, right, if you're paying, then you would want,
Okay.
doesn't it
And
make sense
again,
for the
this is
district?
This is the back and forth, this is the discussion at the.
Well, I'm
Delegate
asking you,
Assembly.
yeah, I'm having that back and forth now. So if I'm the school district and I'm giving my taxpayers' money to that institution, is there a reason I shouldn't obtain validated residency information?
Right, and aren't we doing that already?
Are-
Because I think this is that would allow school districts to withhold payment for
Right.
each student in the absence of validated
So
current
no, you
res- so what
cannot
does-
you cannot withhold payment right now because we don't think they validated proved residency.
So what would cause someone not to prove residency if these are students? I mean, I'm assuming, this is the discussion we want to have. Is a rental agreement not enough? Is a utility bill not enough? How much are they going to ask for? Are we going to get into the kinds of discussions that we saw in the Senate race last year? Like, does he really live in Pennsylvania? Does he live somewhere else?
Well,
Like,
I
don't
think
want-
you're, yeah, I mean, you know that residency determination is something that goes on throughout the state in every school district.
Correct,
And it comes up from time to time, right?
right.
So why is this more complicated than that? Isn't it, it's really, this is a platform. You understand, this is not legislation. So I think there was some confusion over this. It's like, look, it's a concept. It's not a detailed legislative session, right? Although the
However, we
legislative.
are using this, school directors are using this to basically lobby the state legislators. So
Right,
it
but you're
does
not
matter.
writing
The
law.
No,
But
the
you're not
language
writing
in
law.
here matters because they are approaching their state legislators over the text and the language in this document, so it does matter.
I just don't understand why we wouldn't want accountability for where our local tax dollars are going.
No, and we're not saying there shouldn't be accountability. I'm just, are we going to be asking for more than we're asking residents in Pine-Richland to validate? I would say that that sort of validation is great. I want to know, are we asking for more than what? Are we having a greater requirement of charter school students, or are we going to be consistent across all of our schools? And these are just discussions I want to have. I think we both support a level of validation that we currently have I'm just curious to see what the discussion will be.
And am I correct? No changes will happen as a result of those discussions, or is that one of the things that came up last year, that they won't change the language at the delegate assembly, or they will?
I'm not sure I understand.
I think
don't
the
understand
nature,
your
Greg, I
question. So
think
we
what you're
take a
saying.
vote, we take a vote.
Yeah.
And then the changes get made based on the vote. So are we
Right, but
approving
these are
this?
the changes.
Yes.
Additional language, if somebody said, hey, I want to add, we're only, to Christie, so if she said, I only want to have, do you have a legal address with mail and a utility bill, right? That language can't be added at this point, correct?
No, not
Right.
unless
So
someone had
you
submitted that to
yeah,
the platform
right.
committee before the delegate
Right,
assembly.
okay.
If they submitted it and it got rejected by the platform committee, then they can bring it up again at the delegate assembly. We would be hearing it for the first time
yeah.
because it was
So
rejected.
this is the kind of information that'll be new information to you, but it won't translate to here. So your vote is on this, but if you hear something that somebody said, hey, we were gonna add this, and it got rejected, you go, boy, that's a great idea. That would be a reason you go, okay, I reject it. So that's information that we don't currently have because that's not available, correct? Okay. Is there further discussion on this? Okay, we'll move to meeting closing reports.
Just wanted to also mention, we have parent-teacher conferences that are scheduled for November 2nd and 3rd. So every year, we have about a day and a half of time allocated. These are, in often cases, at the elementary level, one-on-one parent-teacher conferences. This gives each teacher and parents opportunity to talk about the child's academic growth and improvement, but really all areas of their education and schooling. At the middle school and high school, we continue to have those opportunities. So we encourage our staff to communicate with parents, and we would encourage our parents to reach out to staff members if you have any questions or concerns or just want to talk about how your child's doing in a particular class.
Thank you. Board reports, are there any?
I'll just say, I did meet at Pine Park, and I did thank them, for letting us use the fields this fall for, I guess it was mostly our middle school teams that were there. It's been great to be over there. The weather has been great. The fields have been great since they don't get swampy, and there's a lot going on at the park. There's a new park director, and I think it's a lot of things, a lot of opportunities for our students to dial in over there with some volunteer things.
Joe, a Beatty update? No, kidding.
If I could just, one thing.
Yeah.
The comment earlier about Destiny being down just really concerned me. So I have checked. I'm not aware of it being down at all today. That is definitely not our style of any type to take something down that's being questioned. So I asked Mr. Stober to check to see. According to him, it was up all day. I checked it now, and it's working now. So I'm not exactly sure what happened.
So I tried to log in before the meeting, and I could not get in.
Could not get in?
It has
Okay.
been online for 81 days, so I'm not sure. There is scheduled maintenance at 8 o'clock where the database is unavailable, but it has not been offline for 81 days.
That's not correct. I tried to log in probably around 2:30, 3 o'clock today, and I could not get in.
But it's up and we can
Multiple
log on now.
times using multiple devices.
Yeah, if you get time tomorrow, check in with me, because I want to make sure, if we figure out what's going on, because that
And I have to say,
shouldn't be
it's
the
not the
case.
first time, because I've tried other times to log in, and I can't, it's like kind of hit and miss.
Yeah, we'll check to make sure. But Sean, if you could, just real quick, can you jump on the website, and I just want to see if it's operational now. And just go to the high school main page, and then go to library. No, through the regular website. Yeah, you were just there a second ago.
Oh.
No, go back, you were just there on that site, that's Destiny that you were just on. Go to Pine-Richland High School, and then library. Go to the high school first, got to go to the sites, go to the left, under PRSD sites, top left.
Oh, sorry.
Go to the high school, and then library. Library there, yep. Destiny catalog on the left-hand side, and then click Destiny Discover. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the site, so we'll check in.
Yeah, I've
Because I
gotten
definitely
there
want to figure out
before.
if there's a difficult path or we're going to the wrong place,
Yeah.
you know, we'll figure that out and make sure that's cleared up. Thank you.
So is it not getting past that point? Is it-
So I've gotten there before.
Oh.
I have had a couple of instances, including today, before this meeting, where I've logged in and I got an error message. I've also been taken to a site where you have to log in. So it definitely wasn't working correctly around, I'd say, 3 o'clock.
Okay.
If you tried to Google it and go there directly, it might not, right? If you go through our website, it would get you to the right subsection of that.
That's how I went through the
Okay.
website.
That's the way to go.
Exactly how we just did.
I just wanted to bring something up that I am, again, it's not on the agenda, but I'm going to bring it up for the meeting on the 13th. And it revolves around, I want to get the right one, around policy 1091 and in regards to some of the forms that have been submitted. The way our policy, and again, this is the first time that we've gotten these forms in to look at materials. The way the policy writes is the materials will stay in circulation until the complaint is reviewed, and we don't have a time frame yet on that complaint review. So I would like the board to consider maybe, what's the best way to put this? Some governing on that. So we've got some books that are of question, and how do we deal with that in the interim? Again, it says they stay in circulation, but could it be a notification to a parent? And again, I'm putting this out for discussion, not for vote right now, but I would like to have something that we might be able to, and if no one else is of ilk, that's fine. But I think putting something on there like a book under review, if it's going to be checked out, then there's parental notification if a child tries to check that out, especially if it's of explicit nature, right? So just a thought of something that would be put on for the November 13th
You just want to
meeting.
put that on as a discussion item for?
No, I'm
or you wanna
discussing
put
it now
You want to discuss
to-
it now
to
and put it
talk
up for
about
an
it, but-
action item
yeah,
for the next
but-
meeting? Okay.
If we
Got
put
it.
it on as an action item, it could always be tabled, but once it's an action item at that meeting, then we meet the Act 65.
Gotcha.
And if we need to revise language, but those were kind of my thoughts, just looking at the policy, because when we approved the policy, we had never dealt with this before.
Correct.
So now that we're dealing with it, you know, that's my thoughts.
So,
I just
Greg,
want to make sure you're asking, if you're doing a change to language, then it would be a first read.
Yeah, you're asking to revise the policy, correct, Greg?
I think what I'm more looking at is kind of a resolution that would say, okay, hey, because we've never dealt with this before, right? So we didn't know exactly how we would deal with this, and now we're dealing with 13 or 12, whatever that number is. So that's kind of what I'm asking.
So are we going to have a discussion then on the entire policy? Because I think we need to. look
Well, I
at
think we need to do the
as a
policy
whole,
as
not
well, but,
just-
so if we do a policy, so we would need to revise policy language, then we would need to have 3 reads of that policy language.
Yeah.
And we're talking months, right?
Right.
So I'm just of the opinion that, you know, we're gonna keep them in circulation, but while they're in circulation, under review, right, would we want to have some, I think in policy, this is something I would like to see, that policy gets changed with language that says, hey, we're gonna put some sort of stipulation if somebody says, hey, I would like this book reviewed, here's the reasons why, that it would come back and just have parental notification, hey, this book is under review, that kind of notification, right? We can put that in final policy or something else, but I think waiting what would be maybe 4 months to get that in a policy, because that's how long it's gonna take to do a policy, just, again, that's what my feeling is. I just wanted to kick that out to the board. Do we wanna wait that long? Because review, we don't know exactly how long that's gonna take at this point.
Can we ask Mr. Palmer, is that something that we could do, that we could, or do we have to change the policy? What's the, like,
Well, you're talking about changing the policy. and
Yes.
So you need to change the policy.
so we would need to go through the reads and all of that? We
Yeah,
couldn't
but there
make
is a procedure by which boards can waive the 3-read process.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to give you an email on how that process goes forward. But we're talking about changing the policy as it exists right now.
Okay.
And Greg, we could even have a discussion, I think. I do think we need to change the policy, but even on enforcing the policy that we have now, because if these books are getting into the library, we need to look at the policy and see what's not being followed.
Yeah,
Because they shouldn't be in the
I
library.
agree, I agree, and I think that
So
might.
that's a problem now with the implementation of the policy.
Well, what we need to see is, you know, how did that would be, in my opinion, a longer discussion as well. So I'm personally looking for something to put in place more rapidly, right? That's me, and then a further discussion. It may be that we revise the policy multiple times. What I'm looking for at first is November 13th, can we put something in that kind of governs what happens to those books right now while they're quote-unquote in limbo because they're still in circulation, right? Now, and again, I can only speak for me. I have not read every book in our library, but when some of those came to me, and I have not even gotten through all of them, there are some things that I'm personally concerned with. So I think that a parental notification is something that I thought was a reasonable ask and could be implemented rather quickly. Then a full discussion on, okay, how does a book get here? Why is one book accepted, one book rejected? Because we do reject books. The librarians do reject books when they go through their process. It's part of their process. I'd like to understand, why is this book a yes and this book a no? Why is this book a yes and this book a no, right? So those are things I want to understand. I think that's a longer discussion. My first discussion is, we have some books in question. We as a board can read through those books, and I can look at some and say, you know, I could see why I wouldn't want my child to have that book, or if my child tried to check that book out, I would want to know about it. So that's all I'm asking. And if there's a way that we can maybe put a quick stipulation in there that says, hey, and I'm just saying, parental notification or guardian notification, and we can do that quickly at the next meeting without the 3 reads, and Dawn can help us with that. It could be a quick language discussion, a voting item, and that's in place. Then we can go into a full review as we also work through the process, which we haven't done before, of reviewing these books. That's just my thoughts.
I think in general, I'm not a fan, and certainly when I sat in your chair, Greg, there were opportunities to sort of cut the process that we follow for policy short, and I always resisted those, and I think with good reason. So I would be hesitant in general. And part of the reason for 3 discussions is very similar to the assertions made about the delegate meeting. Ideas develop, people think about things, right? For instance, we may react in a certain way to a certain passage and all agree, but putting in the policy that receiving a 1091 request immediately puts this book sort of at some form of restricted access, parental notice, whatever it is, right? That's the idea, I think, some form of restricted access, be that what it
Well,
is.
it's not restricting it if you're
Just
just notifying
notification,
parents.
yeah.
You're not restricting anyone from reading the book, you're just
That was my
notifying
thought,
parents.
yeah, just a
Yes. So that's not really, that's not really a restriction, I wouldn't say.
Increasing a burden, right? So, yeah, whatever, however you want to term it. We don't know what it is yet, so whatever generic term we want to use. Well, now it gives anybody in the community for any book the ability to do that, because we haven't set any parameters around it. That doesn't
Right.
feel, that doesn't feel right either, right?
And I can see the slippery slope on that end as well.
And then, and now that's our policy.
Right, and that's why the discussion around, you know, how would we, but if we put it up as a voting item and we talk about language and we sit here on the 13th and go, we're not happy with this language because of instances like that or other things that'll come up in a discussion, then we can say, you know what, we're gonna table this thing, right? Or we can implement it.
Well,
right?
I'm afraid we're talking about specific books, and you want to talk about books, then we'll just talk about the books. If you want to restrict those books, then talk about the books. Because I think talking about it generically as a reaction to a generic, non-specific complaint, which could include any book.
Right,
So
exactly.
it could
yeah,
be, you know, Catcher in the Rye.
Bambi,
Could be
right,
To
yeah,
Kill a
yeah.
Mockingbird. Could be, we don't know,
Right.
and that's open-ended. And it feels like there's a desire to talk about certain books. Then talk about what you want to do with those books. Make it specific if that's the desire, because it's very hard to kind of capture that generic thing. Again, we haven't been through the process, so
Right.
criterion really, it's still sort of needs to be weeded through. If you want to talk about certain books, then
So,
just talk about those books.
That could be as well, where we say, okay, we're in the policy or the whatever change that we make, and again, I'll rely on Dawn for procedure, but if we say, okay, the board has the ability to, upon request from a community member, stakeholder, books will be reviewed, and the board can place these books into a quote-unquote restrictive on a per-book basis. That may be the language, right? Again, and then we can discuss the books, right? So that could be a subset. I think the language discussion needs to happen. I think everyone's seen it ahead of time and being able to kind of go through it in your head and, hey, how would I want this to work? But it's that kind of concept that I was considering. Again, if no one is interested in that on the agenda, that's fine. It was just my thought to somehow get something in there that we can react to.
Well, Greg, I'm glad we're talking about this. I actually wanted to take a different angle at this and just look at the policy and what it says, because if you look at 109.1 in the section that's titled Reconsideration of Library Materials, so once we have a form that has identified a book, then I don't want to lose sight of what the policy says here, because we haven't been through this before. So bear with me. So it says that it will be reviewed by a committee comprised of community and staff members. Do we have that committee formed? So on the critical path to getting any of this resolved is that committee. So we should talk about who's on that committee and when they're going to be reviewing this, because that's really what determines per policy the next step, which is the superintendent making a decision on it.
Right. So the question is, we've never formed this committee before, right? And that's not at the board level, that's at the administrative level. Again,
Which is why I wanted to highlight that for everyone's awareness, because that's really what's important right now.
So trying to pull community members and staff together, we've done that. That's not a quick process, right? So that's why I was saying, like, if we got something in there where we could at least have parental notification, all that would still go on in the background. And I agree, that could be another informational discussion that we talk about. But I think that process is a lot longer, right? And I'm just going from me. Like, I've read some things in those books that I would want to be informed as a parent. But also, I understand that process of reviewing those books is not going to take a day, right? And especially when you're talking 12, 13 books. So if you get a committee together and you go, okay, now you got to read 12 books, and now you got to give me a recommendation on that, like, this isn't happening before Christmas. I mean, that's me. This isn't going to be people's full-time job, right? So I'm looking at timing, and I'm looking at something that we could simply do quickly to just have parental notification, not pulling the book, not saying that we're going to, I agree, Mark, we need to know more about that process, and I think that still is being vetted out because, again, we've not done it before. But that's just where I am. So, yes, I agree. We need to know how that's going to work as well.
And am I reading this right? So this committee would be staff members and community members, not necessarily board members?
Not board members as I read the policy.
So even if the majority of the board found a book offensive, inappropriate, whatever, and the committee got together and the superintendent, they still can keep the book in the library. Is that how this is read?
But the board weighs in on that form as well. Right? The board signs off on that form as well.
Where? It doesn't say it in this.
Not in here, but on the form itself.
On the form, okay.
Great. Oh, go ahead. Are you done, Amy?
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is if we are following policy, how are these books getting into the library? So as I read 109.1, and I'm looking at acquisition, which is on page 2, if we are going through those 12 items listed, how are these books allowed in the library in the first place?
Do you mind if I speak up, Mrs. Hillman?
Well,
or do you want Greg to respond to?
Well, yeah. So I'm not part of that. So that would be an administrative thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be, we've said certain things over and again. Let me say it again. I've been here since July 1, 2013. We have never received this 109.1 form. We received this form from a number of parents reflecting about 13 distinct titles in the last few days. In the few days that we've received them, I already shared with the board my initial thoughts. So it speaks to a committee. Can you pull up, Mr. Stobener, pull up policy 109.1 on the screen? Point 1. And then scroll to the bottom. And leave the part, keep going. Keep going. Right there's good. The request. So my recommendation, and this was initial, this was after receiving a form and having 2 days to look at it with Dr. Pasquinelli and others, was a 10-person committee, 5 staff members and 5 parents of students at the high school. Our initial thinking is that the staff members, obviously there'd be the librarian of the high school library. Our thinking is library department chair, an English teacher who deals with literature and text, perhaps a school counselor based upon some of the topics that are in there, a high school administrator. So on the staff side, that was sort of where the initial thinking was. Again, after 2 days of having received a form that we've never received since at least July 1, 2013. The parent side is a little bit more challenging because we need to be able to share the opportunity, gather potential interested people, and I would expect we would want to have good engagement of a diverse set of parents on the committee. That's not easy to do at any time, and that's not going to be super easy to do in this process because who is on the committee will have a significant impact on how anybody interprets any recommendation that eventually comes out of it. So we collectively, we need to feel good about that. Maybe not 100% agreement, but we've got to feel good about the approach taken to form the committee that's talked about in policy. Once that committee's identified, to Mr. DiTullio's point, if you could scroll up, Mr. Stobener, there's a whole nother part of this policy that speaks to how our certified and trained librarians, keep going, right there is good, select and acquire materials and maintain that. In my opinion, the best thing for us to do, and when we're getting into Mrs. Hillman's questions, which is how does this work exactly? What are they thinking about? What are you doing? Now, I've shared some of that information from the librarians with the board, but I think we could schedule a joint governance meeting. I would rather put the librarians and invite them to participate in a good conversation, to be able to talk about that, what process, et cetera, to have two-way dialogue with the board, to be able to respond to those questions and the things that they think about. Our librarians are certified. They care deeply about their jobs and the students in the school district, and I'm sure professionally would welcome the opportunity to talk to the board about that. But I, again, agree, there's a lot of moving parts. This, even forming the committee, going over those criteria, those 10, if it's 10, it could be 8, it could be 12, 10 is what initially came to mind. If it's 10 members of a committee, they're going to have to understand each of those criteria through the eyes of the librarian. Then they're going to go about, as Mr. DiTullio said, reading the books. I understand. We understand and hear the comments and concerns shared. Some of the books that are mentioned, one of them doesn't exist in hard copy in our libraries. Does not exist. It exists digitally and has never been checked out. That's not an answer to the question or the concern. It's not an answer to the question or the concern. So I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying it isn't. We need to follow the policy.
Yeah, we need to follow the policy, and if we were doing that, if we were doing that, these books would not be in the library.
And so perhaps we can.
That's the problem.
Perhaps we can
Lisa,
talk.
could you clarify that? Show me.
I'm looking at page 2 under acquisition. Materials added shall be guided by the following criteria.
Okay.
1 through 12. Read them.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, my only suggestion is that we
I
have.
don't understand what that means.
We have a meeting.
You don't understand the policy.
I do.
That's our job.
I don't understand the obvious violation.
So if I take the
What
book.
we're reacting to is the request for removal.
So,
following the policy.
what we're talking about here is, the books are here, right?
Yeah.
We have a policy. The way that we're gonna deal with it, we have a review. Part of that is reviewing those 1 through 12, right? All I'm asking for is, I think that the time to review is gonna take too much time for my liking to at least alert parents that, hey, your kid's checking out this book. That was the first thing I want to do, because I think we can get that in as quickly as November 13th. I don't think we're going to get through everything else. I can look at something and go, that shouldn't be here, right? That's not what the policy says. That's not what the policy that we voted on. Rightly, wrongly, or indifferently, that's not the policy that we voted on what it says, right? So all I'm asking is, can we put something in there that says, hey, we're going to notify parents, right? And we're reviewing these things. We're going to figure out that process so that we can get through those, because we have to answer those questions, because I want to understand that as well. But I also don't want these books checked out without a parent knowing about it, right? And if it doesn't happen, great. If no one checks them out, great. Then no parents get informed. However, the policy doesn't say, hey, we can pull the book tomorrow, right?
So are you committing to both the short-term fix that you're proposing as well as a long-term review of the policy?
The long-term has to happen, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm one board member, right? I'm asking, what can we do quickly? Because doing things quickly in governance.
However, you are the chair, so you have the ability to put this on the agenda.
Well, that's what I want to do. I'm informing everyone that's what I want to do, and that's why I wanted to get a feel. And I think to act quickly, if we go weeds, it's going to take a long time. If we go, what can be put in quickly, we can notify parents. That, to me, is very quick, right? I think we can get some language in there that, and again, to Peter's point, maybe we add something that says, the board's going to look at each title and say, yes, we're going to put this one in the notification list, this one in the notification list, but then we're going to go through the process of review, and then we need to review the policy. My opinion, and that's what I would like on the board, right? So it's a multiple. I want it something that we can react to quickly and get it done, and then I want to do something long-term so that we can do it fixed, right? So it's kind of like, hey, I got a flat tire, I need Fix-A-Flat, right? But I need a new tire, right? So the Fix-A-Flat's not the long-term solution, but I can get Fix-A-Flat in there and drive home. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
We can put that on the agenda.
yeah, so I'll work with Dawn on the process and some quick thoughts. Those can obviously, if it's an action item, we can amend those, but it would be within the Sunshine Law and Act 65. If we don't come to consensus, then it could be tabled, but we could get some action potentially as quickly as November 13th.
Well, just one other thing, Greg, because the form is part of the policy. So the forms that have been filled out, the last page of that form has 4 areas to date and note decisions. When the complaint was initiated, a conference with the principal, the committee review, and then the board review and action. Okay, so I think it would be prudent. We could follow policy. We can work on committee as fast as we can. But in some ways, you might read this form and say, board has the authority to make a decision.
Mark, that's the AR. It's not the policy.
It's not the AR, it's a form, it's part of the policy, Peter.
No.
The policy references a form, and the form is part of the policy.
The top of the form says number 109-1 AR.
The form goes with the policy. The policy references a form to be used, and that's the form that I'm looking at. So the board has the ability, and I would propose that on November 13th, we also decide on these particular books. We can actually make a decision on these books.
Without going through committee.
Right.
I think if there's vagueness around the policy, Mark, so for instance, if the form is so what's vigilant here, the board is fourth, the committee comes first, so now you got to follow the,
We don't have to follow the committee. What I'm saying is that.
Well, it is on the form.
It's on the form, that's right.
The committee comes before the board.
The committee could say, it doesn't matter what the committee says, what matters is what the board says.
Is that what the policy says? Like, look, why don't, instead of worrying about the
Peter, you
form-
cannot like it.
No, it's
You're
not that I
allowed
don't
not to
like it.
like
I'm
it.
just saying, I don't wanna-
To your point, I'm actually agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Follow the policy. I'm following the policy. And we're doing it within the policy. We're not changing it at all. We have the authority to
Can
do
you
it.
show me the language? in the
board has-
poli- Can you show me the language that says the board review and the policy? Policy 109 is right up, so just, can you tell him where
The
to navigate to?
form is referred to by the policy. What I'm saying is the policy's not written very well.
Then
Just
let's
like-
re- Then let's
Yeah.
rewrite the policy, exactly.
No,
So-
because you didn't want to rewrite the policy. You wanted to
Actually, I
follow the
do.
policy.
I
You
even
just
s-
want it your way, Peter, and you can't
Right.
have it.
Okay,
Mark,
so,
Mark,
look.
I actually advocated.
So we can
to-
do this within policy. We can do this within the policy, Peter. We can clean up the policy. We can change it, go through 3 reads.
Sounds good, let's do that.
We can also do it, we can make decisions on these books now, without waiting for committee or change of policy. If you look at this form, and I would defer to Dawn, we can do it.
I just want to point out, you lose me because you're flipping back and forth.
No, you're
Well,
flipping
well,
back and
I'll ask for
Mark,
legal
You're
advice
flipping
on this.
back and
I'll
forth,
ask for legal advice on this.
Mark, of the ideas presented, I would favor Greg's idea while the policy gets reviewed. There are First Amendment issues with putting books in libraries, and there are First Amendment issues with pulling books from libraries.
Right, so can we
And
talk
one of
about the
those-
books going in, though?
One of those issues in removing is following the policy.
Which we are doing, Dawn.
Well, but I think what you're proposing is the board just
No, I'm
deciding
not.
without that committee
I'm
process
following our
going
policy,
forward.
because the board actually has the ability to do that, Dawn.
After the committee reviews and
No.
makes a recommendation and
The form asks for a committee recommendation. It doesn't mean that the board has to follow that recommendation. And let's talk about how the book got in, Dawn. It doesn't surprise me you said that, either. So let's look at this policy, Dawn. Policy
I have no
109.1.
idea how
So
the
here's
book
what I'd
got
like to
in
know.
there.
What I would like to know, let's talk about selection for a second. Selection says the following. The school librarian shall provide the building principal with a list of all materials purchased on a monthly basis. The list will be announced to parents and guardians via the building newsletter. Has that been happening? Has it been happening?
Some of these books are, I don't know how old, in our library. I know
But
They're
some over a
posted,
decade, but I
the
can't.
lists are posted on the website, so it
So,
is,
yeah, you're leaving all
What
of
is the
that.
building newsletter?
well, it says or other means
Okay.
reasonable, and they are
So
It
this
is
has
posted
been
linked in the
this has been
flash.
happening on a monthly basis.
when they're purchased, not monthly. So they're typically purchased in the fall and the spring, but when they are, they're posted on each library, school library's website.
Okay. So parents now know that. Can we clarify where they can see that monthly, whenever that goes out, where they could find those books moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, if they go to they pick the school and then library, and then they'll see a link there on the, usually on the
But
left-hand side.
let's make that like abundantly clear.
The librarians post, they share quarterly newsletters on their websites, and we link those in the flash when they come out.
Okay, let's just make
Yeah.
it very,
So-
very clear.
So the question is, the interpretation of the policy and the form, right? I propose we do something November 13th, right? This is gonna be an agenda item on the 13th, right? I think we all can say that, right? I think what we need to do is get some information from Dawn on interpretations, right? Because asking him on the spot isn't entirely fair, right? Like, he's got to look at some things.
That's fine.
And the First Amendment things that he brings up, like, I don't even begin to understand all that. But here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to get stuck in a minutia where we do absolutely nothing on the 13th, right? Like, this is me personally. If these books don't have something done with them on the 13th, like, there's no excuse for that, in my opinion, right? That's me personally, right? Because what I've read of some of the books, I can't speak to all of them yet because I haven't gotten through all of them, right? But I don't even think, in my opinion, I need to get through all the books. There's enough in some of the ones that I've seen where I could say, okay, that right there, that's a nix on that book. That's me, right? So I could do what you're saying and go book by book and say yes or no on that book, right? On a number of them right now. But What I don't want to get stuck in is that we do nothing. So I think, because
So I just want to be clear. Like, my argument is that we can follow the policy. Don, if there's a First Amendment issue with 109.1 AR, that form, you should have caught it when we approved it. Because it's there.
The First Amendment issue relates to following your policy when you're going to remove a book. Your policy.
Which we are doing.
Says.
So think about it. Just
The
think about it.
materials shall stay in circulation until the complaint is reviewed by a committee composed of community and staff members. We don't have that committee yet. So we can't follow that part of the policy that requires that initial review to take place.
Not
until
today,
that's set
correct,
up.
not today.
Right.
But
and
by the
that's-
13th, we could. We
I
could
don't-
have some type of committee.
And have members of the committee appointed by the 13th and read the books and present a recommendation to the superintendent.
I think it's prudent for us to recognize the voices that we've heard tonight and to accelerate how we would evaluate these books, okay? And we could do it above board within policy. That's my argument. So you can disagree with me, and you need time to think about it. Maybe you don't, but I think you should, because I think there's a case to do it.
On the issue of the committee and the formation of the committee, since it just came up, I'd like to offer some caution in appointing the librarians to the committee, because I feel like we need some impartiality there, and they've already made their choice, and we need people on there who aren't necessarily defending the positions, but can look at it with, have an impartial view towards the books that they're reading, and not coming from a point of perhaps defending them from being in that library.
Well, shouldn't you have both? Meaning, you should have somebody who's capable.
Well, obviously, they've already weighed in that they found it to be appropriate and in accordance with our guidelines. So I feel like we need some fresh eyes on it from our school, and
Well, that's what the committee's for.
Right.
Exactly,
I
and
think
we
what
need
Mrs.
to be
Versalis is saying
careful
is that
with.
maybe the librarian could weigh into the committee as to, this is why I selected it. But I
Maybe
do
they
agree,
shouldn't have a vote
they
on the
shouldn't be
committee.
one of the committee members saying, well, yeah, I want to keep the book. I see the prudence in that. But again, these are all things that, these are details that haven't been talked through at a board level, at an administrative level, at any level. And what I want to do is not fail to act.
Yeah, so just, and again, I don't know how much longer you want to review this tonight. I know that your point was made. So when I said earlier about this was the first form received since at least July 1, 2013, it describes a committee that hasn't existed. And I said, here's an initial thought on the committee, but even forming a committee is not a simple thing to do. The librarian is the certified professional who is trained to go through a program that considers, we have 95,000 books in our libraries. They have experience, they are one voice, but as the superintendent, I would say, if I'm going to get a recommendation from a committee that's balanced of parents and staff, I would want the voice of our librarian to be one of those voices. The policy doesn't describe voting or majority. I would imagine that with any title, there could be a recommendation that is split. There could be a recommendation that is strongly in favor of keep it or get it out of there. I mean, there's all sorts of things that could come out of that and get described by the committee. We will work through that. But again, I would need the board to say to me as superintendent, and Dawn can weigh in on that, you should not include a librarian as one of 10 or so many people a part of a committee. Otherwise, I'm going to do it every time because they're the certified professional who understands that process. Not to defend it, but to understand it. If that's addressed with a librarian of a different level, if that's addressed with an English teacher at a particular developmental age, there's all sorts of things we can figure out. But again, I think we need to be able to figure out, and you need to provide that direction. Because I would go with a librarian representative every time as one or as a couple on a committee like that.
I think bottom line is this will be on the agenda in some form or another. I think we as board leadership, we're going to be having a conversation with Dr. Miller. Prior to that, I'll have a conversation with Dawn and some communications to get clarification on Mark's point. But in some form, we need something on the agenda.
Yeah, so I heard, and I think Mrs. Williams did, that it's going to be on the agenda. It can be on the agenda under board business. And if it's a first read of a revised policy, the best way to go about that for transparency would be that someone suggests that revision that you're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
That's what's posted. Right. And then you can go from there in terms of whatever else happens, but that allows us to meet the Act 65 requirements. In terms of a joint governance meeting, we can schedule that. So for some of the in-depth understanding of this, I would assume the board would want to have librarians here sitting and talking with the board to talk about the process, their training and background, et cetera. We can wait to pick that date until the 13th. You know, so there's the committee work, there's the policy work, but there's also the understanding and educational part of this to meet with the librarians. So those are the three big buckets that I would see. Do we want to pick that now or later? And we can talk about it on the 13th because we have enough to do for now. That's fine.
I think we talk about that on the 13th. Agreed?
Agree.
Okay. We'll move to our second recognition of visitors, 11.02. Ms. Williams.
We have 4 in-person speakers. First one is Therese Dawson.
Well, I would like to volunteer for the committee because you left out taxpayers. You said parents and staff members and librarians, but not taxpayers. So I would like to volunteer to be on the committee. And let's just, I guess, review why this hasn't been an issue since 2013. Because people are waking up, okay? And the reason they're waking up is because of the gratitude that we should extend to 5 of our candidates in this district that are running for school board that alerted us to Ban Book Week, which is authored in by the leader of the American Library Association, who's a self-proclaimed Marxist. Isn't that great that our librarians are members of a Marxist-led organization, and we wonder why we have this conflict? So that's why you haven't heard about it since 2013, because people finally are catching on to this scam called public education and lack of parental rights, lack of transparency, and covert fake committees with hand-picked members to bring in whatever the team of 1 wants to convince the rest of the team of 9 about. So congratulations to the team of 9 that's awake and alert and aware of what's going on, not just in our community, but thankfully all across these United States. And if I had a constitution to hand out to every one of you, I would. In fact, all of our 8th graders, I think, should have a free constitution, because that's the year that you learn about that. And you know what? It would be great if someone in our community would donate those. So thank you all for stepping up to the plate and for having this discussion and allowing our voices to be heard. And remember, I'm in for the committee.
Thank you. Next
We
speaker.
do have one online person, Kathleen Ravati. Mr. Stobener? Ms. Ravati?
Hello? Yeah,
You're on with the board.
thank you. Good evening to everyone. I wanted to say that I'm disappointed I did not get to the meeting tonight in person because I've heard great things about Beatty, and it was really helpful to hear the different comments from the speakers tonight about the benefits their children have received from the education that's provided there. And I think it's a great adjunct to what we do in the building and what we do as a corollary to just simple college prep. A lot of interesting comments about books and library selection tonight. You know, in reading the policy, I think a lot of what you need is already in the policy, and there is the outline of what's supposed to happen once somebody challenges a book. It talks about sort of putting stuff on a limited access shelf until a final determination is made. And so I hesitate, not hesitate, but I sort of, when I hear these points being made about how long this is going to take and forming a committee is complicated, it's really hard to understand that given what we saw this administration do during COVID, pivoting from full-time in-person instruction to virtual synchronous instruction in less than 2 weeks' time. And then in response to other active groups within the district that have written demand letters over the years and have requested an audience with the administration, and those things have happened very quickly. So I think the same sort of accommodation should be afforded to these groups of parents that have submitted complaints about books. I agree with Mr. DiTullio about let's get a short fix. If the long-term policy needs to be amended to add some additional meat, that's fine. But this is not a complicated process. You guys throw committees together every other day under the sun, and I don't think it should be that difficult. And then the other thing that jumped out at me about the selection process is, wow, a lot of these books got through the quality control under the policy, despite the fact that they're probably inappropriate and even difficult. Some of them are very difficult to read as an adult. I have read them. There are also some in the middle school, and I don't think that middle school parents should be excluded from the committee. But I contrast this with my attempt through the middle school PTO, PSA, to donate constitutions to the 8th grade students. Literally, these
Ms.
pamphlets-
Ravati, if you could please wrap up your comments.
Sure will. Literally, I have 400 pocket constitutions in my trunk of my car that I have been trying to give to Dr. Kristofsky and Company since Constitution Day back on September 17th. And I know I hear this administration talk about transparency all the time, but the one thing you do not do is answer direct questions. You only give transparency on issues
if you could please.
you want to be transparent about. Anyway, I'd love to donate these constitutions to the 8th graders. If anyone wants to follow up with me on that, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you, and everyone have a great night.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker. Our next speaker is Christine Dawson.
Good evening. My name is Christine Dawson. I live in Cloverdale Drive in Wexford, and I am a 2015 graduate of Pine-Richland School District. We heard from Dr. Miller tonight that the district has a lot to be proud of, specifically that the board does a great job at listening to the community's concerns and addressing them accordingly. We also heard from Mr. DiTullio that there is a policy in place that allows parents to submit requests for books in the library to undergo review for potential removal. We also heard that 12 such requests were made in this last week, and that for a policy that has been in place for a decade. So why is it that you see so many unfamiliar faces here? If there is a policy in place to request book removal, why bother addressing the board? I'm sure that hearing the read aloud from the book, All Boys Aren't Blue, was uncomfortable for you. At least I should hope that it was. If you were not extremely uncomfortable, I would be concerned for your mental well-being. You see, when the community learned that the exact content found within these identified books submitted for review, we were absolutely shocked. How could it possibly be that a book of this nature with such explicit pornography is available to our children with absolutely no screening from parents? It is simply not enough to submit these books for review and to not speak out about the objective disgust that has been found in knowing how easily a minor can consume explicit porn at Pine-Richland. So I showed up. I shared these books with my friends, and I told them how easy it was to access the books on our Destiny database, and they were just as shocked. It is so shocking that a policy request for book removal is not enough. I came here to make you aware of how the board's complicity in allowing these books to be accessible to children is actively causing them to stumble. And if you can tell me one good reason why All Boys Aren't Blue should have ever made it on our library database in the first place, I would love to hear it. Mrs. Hillman's question to this end must be answered. If the administration was paying attention to book approvals in the first place, we would never be in this situation. I am here because the PR I grew up in and was proud to graduate from is not the same one that exists today. Quite frankly, I don't recognize it, and in its current state, I would never send my children here. As Mr. Santiago said earlier, you give us no reason to trust you as our board. I'll ask again, how did these books get into the library in the first place? I should be able to trust those individuals deciding what goes into our libraries to not include dirty graphic porn, and that is clearly not the case. If it was the certified professional known as a librarian, I am even more alarmed. No professional should ever allow, support, or defend porn in schools. When I served as a juror in a criminal court earlier this year in the state of Pennsylvania, Allegheny County, I was asked dozens of questions to ensure my impartiality before making a decision on a person's conviction. So why should the same principle not apply to a committee reviewing library books? The librarian should not be involved any more than someone who is actively involved in a crime shouldn't be on a jury. I echo the words of Dr. Miller. Please do not miss this opportunity to respond to the community's concern with action and change. Thank you for beginning on discussions on this issue this evening, and do not continue to allow explicit pornography to be accessed by our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Emily Rababera.
Hi there, Emily Robabero, Meadow Lane. I just wanted to share that I came to this meeting to talk about how grateful I am to hear about the offerings at Beatty. Hearing Nate speak at the beginning of this meeting was genuinely inspiring to me. Our young people in this community are incredible. They're absolutely incredible. And excellence can take so many forms. I'm really proud to see the district providing students with the opportunity to fulfill their full potential, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what their perceived strengths, no matter what pressures we as parents put on them. To see kids grow and achieve and move in their own way and blaze their own paths, there's nothing better than that. And education is hard work. I think we know this. And it isn't for the faint of heart. And that's true for students as well. And so please, if you could share my appreciation with the officials at Beatty for supporting these awesome kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Chris Brow.
Good evening. My name is Chris Brow. I live at 1252 Woodhill Drive. The first thing about Nathan, who spoke for us tonight, he's actually my neighbor. So I usually see Nathan, but usually I just see the bottom of his feet because he's under his car all the time. So the passion that he's gotten from that, you could tell that's something that he really, really, truly loves. So it was great to see him tonight and hear what he was sharing about, all the wonderful things that he's learning from Beatty, from his teachers. I know a couple of his teachers also over the years. So here at Beatty, so they should definitely be commended. As a teacher myself, when you get to firsthand see what your students do and then hear about the great things, that's the reward that they definitely do appreciate. My other comments, a lot of my questions were answered tonight, but I'll just share them again. How are books chosen for our library? Who makes those choices? Who makes the final decision? I know you said about principals. Has the principal ever declined a book as it was coming through? I know when we adopt textbook series, they're approved, they're reviewed by the board. You guys vote on those textbooks. Why can't that be done with library books also? And I know we can get brief synopsises on books. I mean, you can Google them, get an idea of what's in them. To me, that's just common sense. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one more online caller, sorry, it's Jackie again. Mr. Stobiner?
Jackie.
Jackie?
Hello.
Jackie, you're on with the board.
Hi. Hi. Thank you. It's very hard to follow the Dawsons. They are quite informed and articulate. So I just want to thank the members of the community, especially the two gentlemen that spoke before the meeting. Their children and their family are very lucky to have them. I just want to say that every parent that sends their child or children to school has the expectation of a safe environment, and the district is entrusted to their safety, physical and whatever, with age-appropriate materials. And the K-12 is no place for these books or for any other materials that are not age appropriate. And the parents need to trust the school district and have confidence that they can raise their own children with their own values, not Peter Lyon's values, not Carla's values, not anyone else's values that sit on that board, not Mr. Palmer's values or anyone else. The discussion that there is pornography in the K-12, and we're sitting here fumbling all over each other about First Amendment, removing books, and this and that. Well, how did those books get there is the question, Ms. Hillman, I agree. It had to be approved by the librarians, and it had to have an invoice signed off on. So there's documentation somewhere, and it exists. And I agree, it's frustrating to me, and I'm a taxpayer, just trying to get up to speed with this and find out what's going on. But, you know, the big question is, having asked the question how the books got there and who approved them, you know, it's a reflection of all of this discussion on DEI. Is this part of that? Is it their justification for these books because of your DEI policy? And yes, Mr. Therese Dawson is correct. The American Library Association has a lot of controversy right now, and several states are pulling out of that organization because of the implications of what she referenced. So I just think this is it's just quite astonishing to me that, you know, this has been identified, and, you know, I can understand having to follow protocol, but it just seems like so inappropriate for K-12. And here we are dancing around, tiptoeing around. This is no place for political ideology. This is no place for that.
If you could please wrap up your comments.
There's no place for that.
I'm not sure if you heard me. Could you please wrap up?
And maybe what happened is maybe that's why the standards and the proficiencies of the students in the United States of America compared to the international other countries are so low, because we're sitting here listening to this nonsense going on in the school districts when we should be talking about learning math, science, and competing
can you
in
please
the
wrap up?
international economy. Thank you. I'm sorry. I had to get that out.
All right, thank you. All right. We'll move to meeting adjournment. Just one point of clarification, the committees will consist of community members. I believe the term parents were used at one point, but yes, it is community members, so members of our community. And another comment that was made, yes, Beatty is fantastic. There's a lot here, so please look at it for if you've got students in there. There's a lot for Beatty to offer our students at Pine-Richland. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Mr. Tullio,
I'm sorry, I got to
executive
make
session.
an announcement here. Sorry about that. The board will meet in executive session following tonight's meeting to discuss personnel related to safety and security and the implementation of board policies and procedures. The board will also discuss personnel related to the overall organization chart related to finance and operation. The board will also discuss upcoming negotiations with the PREA. Thank you.
For those tuning in online, thank you for your patience as we did not have video of tonight's meeting. However, we will upload the video copy of tonight's meeting as soon as it is available.
What?
Not sure if everyone heard that. A video copy will be uploaded to the website. Thank you.
I'm just waiting patiently to say my thing. I know, you're the one we have to watch out.